Assalamu alaikum. I see many bright faces, young minds smiling, and welcome to this session, this youth workshop. I hope you have a good time, you enjoy here. Remember, this is a place in which we can discuss anything that comes to your mind. No one is going to judge you, no one is going to pass any comments on you. So it's basically a time that's more fun related, and we will have some interesting conversations. And at the same time, we also would like to have some meaningful exchange as well. Let me start off by introducing this fact that whilst living in Australia or a country which is multicultural, the most important thing for us to realize is that we are members of this giant human family. So we are members of humankind. And our parents, if you look at the pyramid, of course, we are standing right here in the 21st century. But when we started off, remember, we started off with a single parent of Adam and Eve. Remember? So if we look at this whole pyramid, the way everything began, so thousands and billions of people, they have passed by. So at the top of the pyramid, we have Adam and Eve, so which actually means that we are the progeny of a single parent. We are the children of a single parent, and which gives us this feeling that we are part of this huge family. And we might be far removed cousins, but after all, we belong to the family of Adam and Eve. And this actually makes us very, very connected to one another. So just as you would feel for your sister or your brother, maybe, or your aunt or your uncle, you can think that all humankind is part of the same essence and it belongs to the same species. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that always consider yourself to be part of this family, respect every human being, honor every human being, regardless of his or her faith, regardless of his or her inclinations towards gender, towards ethnicity, towards any other thing that a person might have. And this will also make you feel that as members of this humankind family, you have a very, very large heritage to share with one another. So this large heritage, of course, first of all, includes those basic human values which we all share, isn't it? I mean, for all of us, justice, truth, sympathy, kindness, they hold the same value. I mean, every single human being would honor those values. And deceit, fraud, lying, being fraudulent in any way, these are values that all of us would despise. So as citizens of this globe, I would say, imagine yourself that you are connected to the farthest corners of this world. You know what this means? This means that if ever humanity is in trouble, far off maybe, that should really raise some concerns in our minds because you see, we are part of the same family. So humanity is our first religion. It's our first bond of connection. And as people who are living in Australia, remember, you're not just Australian citizens, you are citizens of the globe. You live with one another. So I think this is the place that we have to start off, that humanity, compassion, and all of these things, they start off with the same feeling of brotherhood. Now there's a verse in the Quran, a very interesting verse, and it starts off with these words. It says, "O mankind, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min zakarin wa unsa," which means that we have created you from one man and one woman, exactly what we just saw here. And the Quran says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا, which means that we have made you into tribes and families so that you are able to recognize one another. You are able to know one another. And it should not be a means of making yourself or thinking yourselves to be superior to one another. In fact, the very next part of the verse tells us, "Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum," which means that the best among you is the one who is the most God conscious. And this is something which only God knows. So none of us can ever be in a position to judge other people, to pass remarks about other people, because primarily this is God's domain. So we have to concentrate on our own selves. And as human beings, so just as we have the target to become good professionals in our fields, to be outstanding professionals, at the same time, there's one more target that you might need to add, and that is to become A+ human beings. So unless we are good human beings, unless we are good human beings, we just cannot be good Muslims or good Christians or good Jews or any faith that we belong to. So at the base of every faith lies this huge subset of humanity, and we must concentrate and we must think that we are part of this humanity, human family. We have to connect with one another in this way, and then we shall inshallah move forward. So today's session, as you all know, is related to some of the important aspects of religion, and these aspects mostly they relate to some of the practices, some of the rituals, some of the things that we do, and we might not be very mindful of these things. So I would try and explain all of these things. One of the most important things in life is to determine what best you can be in your own right. For example, you could have different hobbies, you could have different inclinations, and these hobbies and inclinations, you know what they do? They shape your career at times. They let you know what your interests are. So you see, one of the most important things that might be helpful to you is that you must find out who you are from inside. So every person has some talent. Nadia will have some talent, Maheen will have some talent, Zainab, Zaid, and of course, all of us who are sitting here. So it is just that we have to understand that all of us must discover what we are made from inside. And for this, we have aptitude tests, we have many other assessments in which we are able to determine your personality. So the thing that I'd like you to do is that I will give you a short questionnaire, which would not be at this time, but later on. And by answering that questionnaire, you know what? You'll be able to find out what quality or what aptitude God has given me. And the best way is to polish that talent and use that talent maybe for your career, maybe for the service of the society, and that will actually make a big difference. Let me give you an example. You'll see, have you seen a seed, a very small seed? When the seed is planted and it receives rain, it receives manure, it receives attention, what does it become? It sprouts into a plant. And then that plant at times grows into a huge tree. It was that small seed which actually became that huge tree because it was given that attention. So you see, every one of you has that seed of talent in your own selves. If you look after that talent, if you polish that talent, if you are able to groom yourself by attaching yourself to mentors, you'll find that seed that you had in a very small shape, that talent is going to blossom. It's going to really groom, and you will be a person who would be able to contribute to the society that you live in. So think of this, that I should determine who I am from inside, who I can become. And the talent that you have, even if you have it in a small quantity, if you're able to polish that, you'll make a big difference. And you'll become a personality who will be able to contribute to this world, to your society, and of course, to your family. Right. So now I'm going to just describe before you certain things that might be helpful for you when you go along in life, when you are spending your time with your teachers in your school. So you see, one of the things that you will realize is that someone is looking after you. There is someone who's looking after you, and that someone, of course, if you start off with your very first observation, is your mom and dad, isn't that? So your mother and father, they are looking after you, they are taking care of you, and this is something which is apparent to yourself. So, for example, if the two of you are sitting together as friends and as individuals who would like to be in the same category, for example, Hamdan and Zaid. So if Hamdan gives a gift to Zaid, let's say, what do you like? What gift would you like from Hamdan? If ever, forget about Hamdan, any gift that you'd like from any person. Money. Let's talk about some gadgets or something. Anything that you would like for your own self, what would that be? Video game. So Hamdan, on which video game is the best? Any. Give me a name. Broccoli. Okay. If Hamdan gives you this game, what will you feel? What will you say to him? Thankful for him. And if it's your birthday and Hamdan has given you this gift, and let's say Hamdan's birthday arrives, what would you like to do? a gift back? The same book, the same game, or something else? Okay. Why? Because this is a natural feeling that when we get something from someone, we always feel indebted, isn't it? So we would like to say thank you to that person. And in fact, we would like to be more thankful. And if he has given you this game, maybe you would like to give him a better game, isn't that? So you see, what happens is that the feelings of gratitude, the feelings of thanking someone for the gift that someone has given, they come naturally to us. So at a wider scale, if you start looking at this world, you'll see that the gifts that you have, they are immense. And you know what? I start off with the human body. Look at your eyes. These eyes, of course, we take them for granted. Otherwise, if you look at people who are blind or people who are going blind, they could be born blind or they could be going blind. So such people, I mean, you can see how, although they are still happy with what God has given them, but you can well imagine how handicapped they are in leading their lives. So this was just one thing that we need to be thankful about, are our eyes. Look at our ears. Look at our sense of smell. Look at the fact that we are able to have 2 meals. Look at the fact that we have access to good education, good health facilities. So all these things, when we have them, we feel drenched. And our immediate reaction, of course, is that we think that they are provided to us by our family, but our own human body is something, obviously, it has been structured in a way that God has given all these gifts to us. So when Hamdan gives a gift to Zayd, because Hamdan is visible to Zayd, he immediately feels that gratitude and he would reply to Hamdan that, okay, thank you very much. And you would, of course, when his time comes, you will return the gift. So imagine this on a larger scale, that God has given you so many gifts. He's given you eyes, he's given you parents, he's given you a school to go, he's given you clothes to wear, he's given you a car. And all these presents, ultimately, if you look back and trace them back, the ultimate source would be God himself. But there's one catch here. Hamdan was able to see Zayd, and Zayd was able to see Hamdan. But we are not able to see God. So you see, what happens is that in the case of human beings, although these feelings are extremely natural, they are something which are naturally arisen, they naturally arise in us. But the thing is, when we relate all these blessings to someone, and that someone is God, and we are not able to see God, so you see, God has given us a means to thank him. Just as we say thank you to, I mean, the two of you can say thank you to one another, but when we relate these gifts to God, the way to thank them, you know what? That way to thank them are 2, basically. So one of them is to thank God by going down in the prayer, by placing our forehead on, the highest point of our body on the ground and acknowledging his favors. So you know what? Why do we pray? Why do we do namaz? Which is one of the most essential things. It is to say thank you to God. So just as Hamdan and Zayd and Nadia and Maheen and Zainab and all of you would be indebted to each other, the way you would look at each other and the way you would receive gifts. So in a similar way, if you relate all your gifts to God, you'll immediately have that feeling that, God, I'd just like to thank you. So God has prescribed a way to thank us, and that is to do the namaz or to pray namaz. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you would like to understand religion and you would like to say that why am I doing certain things, then one of the most important things is you start questioning that why do I need to pray? Why do I need to fast? Why do I need to, let's say, eat zabiha halal? All these things, one by one, you can question, and we'll answer all these in their own times as well. But the thing is, in order to understand religion, the best way is to find out why. Why am I required to do certain things? And why should I abstain from certain things? This will give us that connection. And as I said, the first thing that we have to understand here is that the most important thing that we have with us is that strong God connection, is to have that strong God connection. And you know what? This connection with God, it does not start off with fear. It should not start off with fearing God. It should start with thanking him, by loving him, by creating this awareness in ourselves that God is looking after us more than our mother looks after us. So if we have these feelings for God, our connection with God will be very direct and very strong. And in order to thank God, it is the namaz or the prayer or the salah that has been prescribed for us. Okay, I'll come back to this in a moment. But another thing that is also prescribed to thank God is to share our blessings with other people. So if we are blessed, if we have food, if we have clothes, if we have meals, if we are able to have access to good things or gadgets, so there could be people around us, the underprivileged, people who might be living in an orphanage, and similarly elderly people who might be living in an old home, and others who might be deprived. So the thing is, there's this twofold strategy to thank God. First, to do the Mass and to bend down before Him, and this is a way to say thank you. And the other is to share our blessings, is to invite other people, to come to them, to make them realize that all of us are one single human family. And in this way, you will also be able to share your blessings. So tell me, Nadia, do you have any special child in your class? Any autistic child or Down syndrome or any mentally challenged? You have them in your class? Okay. And do you have them also in your class? Okay. So I think one of the things that you can do is that, to be kind to that boy. Is he a boy or a girl? It's a girl. So, maybe sharing your lunch with her, maybe taking her out, maybe talking to her. Because you see, these children, they need company. They need to be felt welcomed. Isn't that? So I think one of the things that we can do is that, yes, we can go out and find people who are in need, but there could be people who are immediately around us. So one of the things is, like a person who is mentally challenged, make special effort to go out to her, to talk to her, and to make her feel that you are part of us. This is going to give you a very good feeling. And of course, that's going to be very bolstering for her as well. So this is one way that you are able to make sense of the blessings that you are given by God. So coming back to the fact that we are required to pray to God, and so I would now address this question that if praying is something that is an acknowledgement or a means to say thank you to God, so how can we become more punctual, more regular in the prayer? Because this is something that if we are able to do, then we will be on the line to please God. So let me give you this example, that if you'd like to become regular in the prayer, the first thing that I advise my young scholars and young minds here would be that start off by becoming regular in just one prayer. Any one prayer which is easier for you, and just offer the farz rakat. For example, the Fajr has 2 rakats of farz, Zohar has 4, Asr has 4, Maghrib has 3, and Isha has 4. Some more tips might also help here. You see, we tend to lose focus in the prayer, isn't that? When we are praying, we might be thinking of other things. So let me tell you that the prayer is a mixture of words that you can say in your own language as well as in Arabic. So there are just 5 things that you need to say in Arabic. And the rest of the prayer, you can say in your own language. I'll just describe that. And you know what? That makes you feel that as if you are talking to God yourself. Because after all, Arabic is a foreign language. And so yes, there are parts of the prayer that have to be uttered in Arabic. But then there is also a very large part that can be uttered in your own language, like for example, English or Urdu or Persian or German, whatever language you use. So you know what? I'm just going to write those 5 instances that you might note down if you would like to. And these are the only 5 instances that you need to say in Arabic. And the rest of the prayer can be said in your own language. And you can ask God, you can thank God, you can glorify Him. Anything that comes to your heart. It's like a heart-to-heart conversation with God that you can have within the prayer, not after the prayer, within the prayer. So let me tell you those 5 instances. So you see, whenever you say Allahu Akbar, you start off the prayer by saying Allahu Akbar, isn't it? And then at each posture that you adopt, you say Allahu Akbar. So this has to be said in Arabic all the time. And that's easy. I think all of you would know what Allahu Akbar is. It means God is great. So, and then the second thing is Surah Fatiha. All of us remember this surah by heart, isn't it? So, obviously, I also will come to the fact that we need to understand the meanings of Surah Fatiha. The third is, the surah that we pray or read after Surah Fatiha. So what surah would you read after Surah Fatiha typically? Any surah that you remember? No, the surah. Like for example, Kul Huwallahu Ahad or Kul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. Okay, so surah is called Surah Ikhlas. This is the third. The fourth is when you get up after kneeling and we say, what do we say when we get up after kneeling? When I'm in this posture and when I stand up, what do I say? Sami Allahu liman hamida. So that has to be in Arabic. So okay, I'll write it down in Arabic because I think you would be able to read Arabic. Sami Allahu liman hamidahu. And this actually means that God hears the prayer of those who are grateful to Him. Sami Allahu liman hamida means God acknowledges the prayer of those who are grateful to Him. And then the last is actually when you end the prayer, which is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. These are the only 5 instances that you have to say in Arabic. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. I'm just going to write it in short form. So if you just think that these are the 5 instances that I have to say in Arabic, the rest of the prayer, for example, when you're sitting in At-Tahiyyat, the sitting position, in the middle and at the end. Similarly, when you are kneeling, when you say Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, and when you are prostrating, when you say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. So all these instances can be said in your own language, and you can say any words. You don't have to say Sami Allahu liman hamida or their translation or Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. Sami Allahu liman hamida you have to say in Arabic. But the rest, whatever utterances have been taught to you, you can say them, you can say their translation or any other dua that comes to your mind. And it could be thanking God, it could be praying to God in the form of an invocation or dua, or glorifying Him. So you see, this makes the prayer something very, very interesting, isn't it? This will show you that it's not just a routine utterance of certain words that we are making, but it has a very deep impact because I am now able to talk to God. So, Hamdan, what's your greatest wish? To go to heaven. And what about anything that you would like in this world? Huh? Lots of money? Okay. So you see, within the prayer, when you're sitting in your At-Tahiyyat, normally what we do is when we say Assalamu alaikum, we turn to both sides and then we pick up our hands and then we start to making dua. Okay, that's also fine. But the real place for dua or asking God is within the prayer, and that is what you just said at the At-Tahiyyat. Whenever you're sitting in the sitting position, so whatever comes to your mind, God give me plenty of money, God please make my exams easier for me, God give me a Audi, God give me whatever wish that comes to your mind is something that you can utter within the prayer. And this makes a singular difference. You'll be absorbed in the prayer. You'll think as if the prayer is connecting you to God. And it's going to be something of a very, very good experience. So this is what I wanted to say, that the first practice of Islam, which is very important, is the prayer. So in order to become regular in the prayer, first we need to know its philosophy, the philosophy or the reasoning, which means that we have to be thankful to God. And that expression of gratitude is through the postures of the prayer. And within the prayer, we can mix our own language with the Arabic so that we are able to converse with God. And thirdly, the way to thank God is to share our blessings with those who are underprivileged. And remember, this is something that you should do across the board. It's not just that you just need to be kind to Muslims, not just need to be kind to people who are of your own sort, but kindness, sympathy, being a good person is regarding every single person that you come across. Because remember, he's part of the human family. He's part of your fraternity. So you cannot discriminate by telling yourself that I have to be kind with Muslims and unkind or unjust to non-Muslims, because all of them are human beings in the first instance. So be that, and as I said, you can go even further. Be kind to your pets. Be kind to animals that might be stray animals maybe, or they need shelter. So or maybe they might need some help, they might need some food. So being kind to animals, and even one step ahead I would take and say, be kind to vegetation and plants also. Remember, they are also have a certain cognizance. They live at a lower level, but they're still alive. So this is something that should come naturally to us, to spread this kindness, this sympathy, and this care and affection to every single person that we come across. This was something that we also need to understand, that people in this world, all of them are not, that privileged as you might be. So always think of sharing your blessings with other people. And the money that you have, don't shy away even if you have small amount of money. You see, at times when we have a little bit of money, we do shy away, isn't it? We think that, well, what difference can this small amount make? But I can tell you that even that small amount is like saying that every drop of an ocean counts. So your drop of money, it would be a single dollar, it could be a few shillings. All of them are equally important. So think that this is something that you have to do. This is a contribution that you're going to make. Another thing that might be of interest to note here is that whenever we give this money to people, to donation, to charities, it's not good to publicize it. It's not good to brag about it. It's not good to boast about it. Best to keep it between yourself and God. Yes, maybe your parents, someone who immediately know you. Otherwise, you see, all goodness, all acts of virtue, when we do them, they have an effect on you if they are kept secret. And that secret is between you and God. So be charitable, be magnanimous, be generous to people who are around you. And remember this generosity, this can start off with a number of things that you can do. One thing that you can really do, all of you can do, is that look in your homes and open your cupboards, open your drawers, maybe things that you might not be using. They could be clothes, they could be medicines, they could be stationery, it could be crockery. You can ask your mom and dad also. So allocate a place in your house, a corner, where you can collect these extra spare things. Keep piling them up there, and whenever they amount to a substantial amount, you can just pick them up and donate them to a charity. So why do I say this? Because you see, these things are lying spare in our houses. And at times, we buy things and we then realize, oh, I already had them, because we are not always cleaning our cupboards and our drawers, and at times you end up buying something that you already have, which actually shows that we have a lot of things in our houses which are spare, which we would never use or sparingly use. So this is what we recommend, that maybe on a Sunday, maybe every 1 month or so, have this exercise. Talk to your mom and dad, talk to your brothers and sisters, and tell them that if we have to be charitable, it's not always that we rely on our pocket money. Yes, if that is there, of course, that you can use it, but we can always give things we possess. And it could be things as small as a pencil, as small as a rubber or a sharpener maybe, or a pen or a piece of paper. So you remember, not everyone's trash is something which is trash for another people. So start doing this exercise, and you'll realize that I have a lot of things to spare. And because we don't give attention to these things, that at times it happens that, things, they go waste and they are thrown in ultimately. But if they are done so at the time when they are of use to other people, then this is something that we should do. Another thing that I would maybe advise you, when you grow up and you are able to be in a position that you have a career and a profession, you have a driving license. So you see, if you're able to donate your organs and you write a will, and in other parts of the world, I'm not sure about Australia, but when you get a driving license, you add to that driving license that in case I pass away, my kidney, my eye, my lungs, and other parts of the body which might be useful should be taken out and donated to people who would need them. So there are organizations all over the world. I'm sure there must be here in Sydney and other places. In case of death, they take out these things and they use them for people. So imagine this, that your eyes, which would no longer be of use to you when we go away from this world, lighting up the world of a blind person. So we are donating for this cause. And I think this is something that we can always think of, that things which are things which are spare can be given to people. We have these things in our body as well when we pass away. So writing a will when we have a driving license, or maybe so there's some other rule here. I'm not sure if any one of you might be knowing. Is there anything that you can do? Is that a driving license thing? Okay. We can fill a form. So Zishan Bhai will tell you maybe, and if you feel like this, I mean, you don't have to do it immediately. You just think about it. Think about it, and if you feel comfortable, if you feel like giving this, because that is not going to be of any use to us once we pass away. It might be of use to several people. Think about this. If you feel comfortable, then you can search online for organ donation, and this is something that you can really do. At times, we are given this responsibility. It's not always the highest responsibility. You might not be the prime minister ever, but remember, as an individual, you are a force to reckon with. Every one of us would be given responsibilities when we grow up. Every one of us would have tasks and chores to do. Every one of us can choose the way, whether we are responsible or not, or whether we are irresponsible. So you see, these are the things that we have to always take care of, that whenever we are given this opportunity to make a difference, whenever we are given this privilege, whenever we are given this position that we can do something, always be a person who is going to analyze, think, evaluate, and do what best you can do. And as individuals, as you grow up, as you become part of the Australian society, think of the things that you can really do. And you know what? One thing that is perhaps the most important thing in life is to be a person who is just, a person who adheres to justice, a person who never should think of doing any unjust thing to people around us. Because justice is the queen, as they call it, the queen of all virtues. And the Quran has specially laid stress on justice. It says, "Inna Allah ya'murukum bil adl." God actually enjoins you to do justice. And this justice has to be across the board. I mean, if justice demands that you have to utter certain words, and maybe your dad or maybe your mom, your siblings, they might not like what you have said, but you have said the truth and you have adhered to justice. So remember, being just is more closer to God than pleasing our parents and being unjust. So always be on the lookout that I have to be a person who must be just in my dealings. I must be fair and square. I must not make a mess of these things, because justice is something which is required at all levels. And it is precisely to administer justice. Remember that God says that I'm going to create this day of accountability, the day of judgment. And on that day of judgment, I will be meting out perfect justice. In this world, we just cannot have perfect justice. We just can have possible justice. People can be very, very bad. We know what Hitler did. We know what Genghis Khan did. The genocide which is going on at the moment as well. So all these punishments, they just cannot be repaid or recompensed in this world, even if we catch the criminals, because the amount of crimes that they do are horrendous. They are horrific, and they far exceed our own limits. So it is this day of justice, or the day of accountability, which is going to come, and then we are all going to be presented before the Almighty for what we did. So always think that we have responsibilities, we have privileges, and all these responsibilities and privileges are something that would be held, that would hold us accountable in this world and in the next world also. Okay, so now we're going to have a small activity. We discussed why do we need to pray. We discussed about charity. We discussed about how we can become contributing individuals. We discussed about justice. And we discussed about how we are connected to humanity, and we in not any way should be looking down upon other people. We should always make them feel as if they are like us. And at the same time, we also discussed that living in Australia or any multicultural society, the right thing is not to, it would be incorrect if we start isolating ourselves from other people. We should get ourselves integrated and become part of the Australian society. Okay, during the break, someone from you asked me a question and discussion. So I was thinking of doing that a little later, but I'm going to push it a little earlier so that this is something that is very important as well. And that is the issue of the LGBTQ community that we have who are living here. They are found around us. They are like in our classes. They may be among our teachers. They might be amongst our neighbors. So as Muslims, as individuals, what should we do? What exactly should be the way forward. Should we start hating them? Should we start isolating ourselves from them? Should we think that they are bad people, or should we make friends with them? So you see, there are the options that we have. So I think that the first thing that we have to understand regarding gender orientation is that basically as individuals, as human beings, we don't have the right to judge people on the basis of gender. Let every person choose whatever gender bias or gender inclination he or she would have. And as such, he or she should be a person who we should respect. Yes, this respect does not mean that we agree with that gender inclination. It means that we agree that every person has a right to have a gender inclination, but certain inclinations are something that we do not agree with. So typically, for example, we would say that if you look at the scheme of God, so God created Adam and Eve, remember? He did not create two Adams. He did not create two Eves. So the scheme of God is that basically it is a man and a woman who come together and form a family. And as a result, they move forward. So if you look at the scheme of God, it is, more natural and more conducive that we have a family in which a man and a woman come together. Obviously, they produce children as a result. And the vacuum which a personality has, for example, there are certain things which only a father can give to the child, and there are certain things which only a mother can give a child. So an ideal family or a family which is envisaged by a religion is one which is formed by a man and a woman. But at the same time, people who have different tendencies, like maybe men who are gay or women who are lesbian, as far as they are concerned, I think personally we should always be respectful towards them. We should not hate them. This is not our job. God has to judge about them. But when we stand for them, it only means that we support them as human beings, that they should have rights. There should not be any discrimination between them. But my, of course, understanding would be that, well, I would not agree that if you have a different gender bias, I would give everyone the liberty and the freedom to have whatever gender bias he or she would have. But obviously, I can have a different opinion. And in this regard, the Western society, or of course Australia included, it needs to understand that at times this freedom of expression is something which they have always championed. All the West says that we can have our own opinions and we are free to choose an expression regarding what we have. So the West has to understand that if Muslims, for example, have a different perception of gender orientation, then this is like having a different opinion which everyone has a right to have. It's not a means to proscribe them or to start saying that Muslims are narrow-minded or they have their own perception. It's just giving them the liberty that if they differ with the West regarding gender orientation, then this is the right of every individual. I can have a different view about gender orientation and other people can have a different view, but let us agree to disagree and respect each other. So one thing which Muslims are not doing correctly today is that they, I would say, create this hate factor in their own selves regarding this community, which is not right. We should not hate individuals of this community. The thing is that hate is something which is more a part of God's scheme and how God would deal with them. As far as we are concerned, they are people who are individuals, who are respectable to us, and they should not in any way be treated as if they are lesser human beings. We might have a difference of opinion, but that is something that is happening. We think that we should not go near them, we should not invite them, we should not make friends with them. I don't think this is the right attitude. I think the right attitude is that friends are made naturally. And if you find that you are making friends with such a person and you're also maintaining your distance and identity, then this should not be any cause of concern. At the same time, the Western society has to realize that at times when Muslims hold a different opinion, then this is a right that they have. If I think that I don't agree to a certain gender orientation, it is my view. I can be wrong, but I am entitled at least to hold it. So I think this is a balance that we have to create. There are 3 points to this. The first is that a family that is imagined by God is one which comes into being from a man and a woman, because Adam and Eve were created and there were no two Adams, there were no two Eves. And the second thing is that hating individuals for what they do is not the correct way. It is always respect that earns respect. We can differ in spite, we can be respectful in spite of differing with one another. And the third thing is that whenever the Western society corners you or tells Muslims that they are, doing something which is against their mandate, then they can be told that having an opinion is something which is not wrong. I mean, I can have an opinion regarding a society and I can be wrong as well, but you have to give me this liberty to have an opinion. So at the moment what is happening is that the society or the Western society does not give you the right to hold an opinion which is different from what it holds in this matter. So I think that we have to be individuals who know that as far as life is concerned, we come across all sorts of people. So coming across all sorts of people should tell us that to us, every single person is a respectable human being. He or she might have different inclinations, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we agree with that person, and it also does not mean that we should hate that person for what he or she is doing. Remember, if someone is doing something wrong, let us hate the sin and not the sinner, as they say. It is the bad habit of a person that might be something that we would not like. But at the same time, the person himself or herself is a person that we should respect always. He is a person who's respectable to us because he's part of our family. And this goes with every habit that we might have regarding other people. I mean, the first thing is that as far as individuals we are concerned, people can have bad habits, and instead of condemning people for those bad habits, the best thing is that we try to come even closer to that person, and maybe through our good influence, we are able to change that person. So instead of drawing away from people who are bad, I think it's maybe good to come closer to them, because in that case, you will be able to influence them towards what right thing is, and you'll not be in a position that in any way you regard them to be inferior to you. Okay, so do you have explicitly people who are declared in this community in your class, for example? So, and do you make friends with them? I mean, naturally, it's not that you go specially towards them. It's just, you make friends. It does not, you don't control this friendship issue. It's like it comes naturally to you. So what I'm saying is that if you would like to become friends with them naturally, my suggestion is that there's nothing wrong with that. You can maintain your distance, you can maintain your difference of opinion, but at the same time, going over to their houses or maybe inviting them or meeting them socially, there's nothing wrong with that. So Zaid, do you have people like this in your, so what do you do with them? You don't talk to them. Why not? You hate them. But do you think it's okay to talk to them? Okay. So don't think that this is something which is religiously prohibited. We're not prohibited to talk to such people. In fact, as I said, respect is something that should always come first. Having a different opinion does not mean that we should be disrespectful to people or not be friendly to them. To make friends with someone does not mean that we are agreeing with what they are doing. It actually means that we respect them for what they are. Their gender orientation should not be a hindrance to your making friends with them. Because you see, as a human person, as a human being, we are required to be generous in our understanding, accommodating in our understanding, and who knows that your positive influence might be impactful. Hmm. Okay, okay. And if they invite you over to your house, to their house, so it is here that we have to maybe talk to our parents as well. So the parents have to be told that, you see, it's not that we have to be, you see, what happens is that if you stop meeting such people, they feel as if they are being discriminated. They feel that they are being regarded to be inferior. And that's what happens. And I think this is against humanity and these basic principles. And that is why regarding parents, I often talk to them that this is one area in which all that they need to do is let their children know what right and wrong is, and let them make the choices. And as far as those choices are concerned, they should not be driven by the parents. They should be, you can suggest, your parents can suggest that yes, this is something that you can do and this is something that you should not do. But the final decision should be left to that adult child, because this is why we think that unless you empower your children who are grown up, you will never be able to make them confident individuals. I mean, they have to be given the liberty to make choices and even make wrong choices, because after all, uh, we have to gain experience, and experience is the name that we give to our mistakes, basically. How would you view this? Distance between us. Okay. But if, is it that if they call you to their houses, would you go to their place because your mom and dad would not allow? And personally, what do you think? You would, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, that's fine. I mean, anything which in which you personally don't feel comfortable with, that is fine. But do remember this, that this should not be anything that should make you hate such people. Remember, they are people who are, they're like God's children. They're like God's family, and it's like having a difference of opinion. So look at people. I mean, so gender orientation is one thing. So there are so many boys and girls and maybe adults who have extramarital relations. I mean, they have other things that might be objectionable. So that is also equally something that is not right. So if you make friends with those people, I mean, if you make friends with girls and boys who have intimate relations without marriage, if that is something that has become acceptable, okay. So now we're going to do some more activity and some more gupshup, I would say. And this is an activity that we would like to do in the absence of parents. If the parents are requested to please give us some time, and we'll call you back. So, you see, one of the things that I'd like to discuss here in the absence of parents is because of the fact that while living in a multicultural society, at times we find that our parents do not fully appreciate what must be done and what must be done, and the pressures that we might be facing. And when we share them with our parents, they would not like them, or they would scold you, or they would not agree with you. So I would like a heart-to-heart conversation, a frank conversation, and this actually revolves around a couple of questions. So one question is, like to ask each one of you is that tell me one thing that you'd like your parents to change regarding their attitude towards yourself. Something that pinches you, something that you would not like your parents to do to you, and they do it continuously. So if you would like to share that thing, Hamdan, what would be that one thing that you'd like your mom and dad to change regarding yourself? This is a good thing that we are able to discuss these things. Okay, now let's come to the other aspect, and that is one thing that you really like about your parents. I mean, this is one thing that you wanted them to change. For example, you would like to change, make them change in the fact that they should listen to you more, give you some more empowerment, give you some more authority, and of course, give you the time. At the same time, the way you study, the way you conduct yourself. So these are the things that you would like them to change. So we had a very heart-to-heart and one-to-one conversation with all the young boys and girls here, and we wanted you to have I wanted to present a summary of some of the things that they would like to be communicated to the parents. Some of them might not be here, others might be here, but this is going to be a little more general, because I'm going to add some other things also which they might not have pointed out, so that as parents you are able to be closer to your child, even more closer to your uh, to the aspirations and the, I would say, ambitions and uh, the profession also that they'd like to adopt. So the first thing is that which is essential to make a house a home. I mean, to create a homely atmosphere, to feel that a child is welcome and he or she feels like that. Well, if I'm off for my school, I feel excited to go back to my house. You see, this sense of excitement, this sense of uh, affection that you feel for after going home, that has to be there. And one of the reasons it is not there, that's what I'm going to talk about. And this is one area in which parents, they have to revisit and reevaluate themselves. And that is the husband and the wife, they must not quarrel in front of the children. This is something which plays havoc with their psyche. Yes, you can have a difference of opinion in a very polite way, in a acceptable way. That is fine. But we find mothers and fathers fighting with each other, at times using bad words, at times even creating a division in the family by, for example, a mother would typically say that the boy is siding with me and the daughter is siding with the father, or it could be the reverse. So it's like a family feud at times it comes. So this is one area that parents have to be extremely careful about, that having a difference of opinion is fine and expressing it politely is also fine. But when you start quarreling with one another, abusing with against one another, or creating an atmosphere in which there is always this tension in the house, that is where we as individuals, we must restrain ourselves. We can always resolve those differences in our own bedrooms, but they should not in any way come before the child, which actually makes them feel as if my mother and father are always daggers drawn, so to speak. You know what? Once I was counseling a few children. One of them was a 12-year-old boy, and his sister was 13-year-old, and we were just discussing general things. And so the topic of marriage just came up, and both the boy and the girl, brother and sister, they said, "Well, uncle, I'm not going to marry." I said, "Why?" And I started to have a conversation with them, and you know what? It came out that it happened that it is because of the fact that their mother and father would often quarrel with one another, would often abuse them or each other, or talk in a very bad way, that that 12-year-old boy and the 13-year-old girl said, "I'm not going to marry ever. Because if this is what is marriage, then I'm I'm better without it." So you see what importance this has. The second important thing that we have concluded here and discussed here is that comparing your child to another child, it is not the proper way. Because you see, this is going to discourage the other child. It's going to put that child into a darker frame, which is not correct. You should not compare your children to other children or siblings to one another. Because you see, every child has a strength and every child might have a weakness. But when you start taunting your children, I mean, you're not just comparing, you're taunting them that look at your sister, look at your brother, look at your cousin, look at your falan. So that's not going to, that's not going to encourage them to do good things. That's just going to make them more depressive. And they'll just feel that I'm good for nothing. And I'm just a burden on the shoulders of my parents. So the second important thing is that comparison in the form of taunts should be absolutely abstained from. Because this is one place where the child will never learn. Instead, you know what should be done? It should be analyzed that what exactly is making my child a slow learner maybe or weak. It could be that the subject is not being taught in the proper way. It could be that he or she has an interest in a different subject. It could be several other things. So instead of taunting them, instead of making fun of them, it is better that we are able to see that every child has certain strengths and every child has certain weaknesses. So all that we need to do is we need to highlight those strengths and we need to discover those weaknesses and sit down with the child, the weakness that she or he might have, and try to make some remedy out of it instead of taunting them. This is the second thing. The third thing, and this important is that parents should not impose themselves on their children, especially when they are grown up. And you know what? Grown up does not mean that you are 18. It means that when you are mentally mature, and I think that all these children, the one in the first line, at least they are all grown up and mentally mature children. And one of the things that makes a person learn is to be given the freedom to choose and make mistakes. You have to give this confidence to your children that it's okay to make mistakes. All of us learn from our mistakes. So you empower them. You give them the choice. Okay, you do what you like. You choose your career. You choose your subjects. You choose your clothes. You choose your style of living. And as parents, they should be advisors. They should be people who suggest and let the children, I'm not talking about young children, I'm talking about mature children like the ones here. Let them have this opportunity. Let them be given this freedom to choose their life, to choose what they would like to do. And of course, they would make wrong choices. All of us do. But making wrong choices should not deter us to empower them. So the third thing is that every single human being, as he or she grows up, God has given him or her the freedom to choose whatever he or she would like to be. The even I look at this gender-oriented subject in this way. If a child chooses something, I mean, you might disagree with that child as a parent. I might disagree with my son, but what I do, I would advise him. I would give him my advice, suggestion, and tell him my experience in life, and then I would say, okay, you are free to choose what you'd like to do. This is how we will empower them. This is how we'll make them grow. This is how they will have confidence. This is how they will have self-belief in them. Otherwise, if we keep taking decisions which they should take and we take on their behalf, they are never going to be confident in life. They are never going to be having self-belief and self-confidence. And you know what? To become a contributing person in this world, self-belief, confidence is essential. It is very important. If you don't have that, you'll never be able to move forward in life. So this is how parents should do. The fourth thing that I'd like to say here to parents is that if they have to teach their children religion, then it should not be by saying you do this or you don't do this. It should always be accompanied with the reasoning of why they should do certain things and why they should not do certain things. So we discussed about namaz. So every parent is very, very emotional that my child should be a 5 times a day prayer, and he should or she should always be punctual in all this. So remember, this is going to take time. I mean, praying 5 times a day, is like developing a habit for that. You help your child. So I just gave this example earlier on that instead of asking them to pray 5 times a day, ask them to pray once a day. And then you can slowly add another prayer after a couple of months. And in fact, let the child add it herself or himself. Because the more they start enjoying the prayer, they'll do it automatically. So you need to make the prayer more enjoyable for them. Tell them it's like a conversation with God. Tell them that these are the 5 instances that have to be said in Arabic. The rest of the prayer you can say in your own words. Make them realize that the prayer is to be offered as a means of showing gratitude to God. It's like such a natural thing that if you're given a gift, you'd like to reply with that gift. But because we cannot reply God with the same gift that he has given us, so all that we can do is say thank you to him by prostrating ourselves and kneeling ourselves and sharing our blessings with other people. Similarly, for example, one issue is that why do we slaughter animals on Eid? So Eid is a festival that we have, which is the Eid al-Azha, which comes, of course, in Zul-Hijjah. So the question might arise that why is it that we should slaughter animals for our own good and for our own pleasure, because we are like taking the life of an animal. So a couple of things here also need to be understood so that this animal sacrifice is put in its proper perspective. Otherwise, people generally think that animal sacrifice, the basic reason for that is to distribute meat amongst the poor people or people who deserve it. This is not what animal sacrifice is all about. First of all, we have to understand that animals have been created by God for the service of human beings. So if we are slaughtering them, if we are using their meat or their milk or their hides, it's not that we are going beyond our authority or beyond our control or our jurisdiction. God himself has said this in the Quran, that animals have been created for you. They are in service for you. But the important thing is you cannot take an animal's life. You cannot take an animal's life unless I permit. And that permission is granted when we say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, which is the takbir when we slaughter that animal. So that is precisely the reason why we prefer, or we are actually required to eat just halal meat or zabiha meat. Because zabiha or halal meat is one in which that animal has been slaughtered by taking God's permission, and only God can give us his permission. I cannot take the life of a human being. That is beyond imagination. That's unquestionable. So God says, as far as human life is concerned, that's unquestionable. But even the life of an animal cannot be taken unless I permit you. And that permission is actually granted when we slaughter that animal by saying takbir. And that is what makes it halal or zabiha. So animal sacrifice, again, is something that has to be done with God's permission. And remember, on Eid, because in Australia, in many Western countries, you don't get to see animals getting slaughtered because they are slaughtered at the slaughterhouses, which are the abattoirs. And at the same time, you just at times send money back home for slaughter, or it might be that you just give money to a mosque so that they can slaughter on your behalf. Other than that, what important thing that we have to know is that slaughtering an animal on such an occasion is not for the purpose of meat. It is basically an expression which tells us that we are prepared to lay down our lives for any just cause if ever the need arises. So God, today I make this commitment that I'm slaughtering this animal in my place as a symbolic expression of the fact that if tomorrow my own life is needed for a just cause, I'll not withhold myself. This is the philosophy, and this is the reason of animal sacrifice. Remember, it's not for distributing meat. It's basically expressing yourself as an individual that today this animal is being slaughtered just to give you this commitment that if tomorrow my life is needed for any just cause, like saving people or doing other things that might save people, is something that's going to happen. So I think in this regard, it's not the child that is to be said something. It is the parent who must give this confidence to the child that whenever they see something wrong in you, they are given this liberty that, yes, you can come and criticize me. So the child will only come to you when he has the confidence that, yes, I can share this with my parent. So basically, it is the parent who has to take this initiative and tell the child that if I am doing something wrong and if you see something wrong that I'm doing, please don't hesitate. So, the child would always like to point out his mistakes, isn't that? But if you think that if I go and point out this mistake to my father and he'll become angry, what would you do? You would not point this out. So I think the important thing is that if you would like your children to do something to correct yourself, then they should be given this confidence that, yes, I can go and talk to my child, and the child can come and talk to me. So would you go and talk to them, or how would you communicate your grievance to them, or your point of view to them? So yes, I think one of the good things is that there should be a free-flowing atmosphere of conversation between the parents and the young ones, because this is how you give them the confidence to talk to you. And remember, children are like your mirror. They act as your mirror, especially the young ones who are innocent. They will just speak what comes to their mind, and often it reflects what you are. So just like innocent children, they would not withhold from saying what the truth is. We also should be replicating this and thinking that, well, if we are getting a feedback from our children about ourselves, well, of course, we have the option to disagree. But basically, we have to understand that this is what our child feels about myself as a parent. So I should worry about that if I have a negative feedback. I should be more careful about how I should spend time. So I just a couple of minutes ago, I was explaining that in order to become a good parent, one of the biggest things is that you should give your child the confidence that he or she can come to you and say that, Baba or Dad, I did something wrong. There's one thing that you point out the flaws or your mistakes of your parent. And another thing is that you give your child the confidence, that if the child has done something wrong, instead of hiding it, instead of maybe feeling guilty about it, instead of speaking to someone else, he directly comes to you or she comes to you and say that, Dad, this is something I did bad today and I'd like to share this with you. This is what I call the best parenting that can ever happen. If your parents have given you so much liberty, they have given you so much confidence that when you do something wrong, instead of hiding it, instead of maybe feeling guilty about it and not knowing what to do, you come to your parents, because you know what? Now it means that your parents have, what they have done is that they have given you this confidence that, well, we can make mistakes. All of us make mistakes. And if you have made a mistake, it's fine. It will not happen again. We'll try to make it work the next time. So this is another thing that we have to do. And another thing that I'd like some of the parents who are sitting here is that you have to develop this friendship with your young ones. And the best way to develop this friendship is to come down to their level and see what they're doing and be part of that. For example, if they have heroes in soccer, in football, in basketball, in cricket, you should be able to have a conversation with them regarding their heroes. And that can only be done if you have enough knowledge of their interests. So one thing is by having this conversation, you should have knowledge of the heroes, of the, let's say, the players or people who are doing that, so that whenever you sit, you're always not criticizing one another. It's not always that you're talking about things that might be different. It's that you have a common point of conversation. So girls and boys all have their interests. They all have their hobbies. They all have their specifics. So one way to develop this friendship is that you also sit down with them in their hobbies, in their interests, and have enough knowledge regarding their interests so that you're able to speak to them. And this will be a more meaningful conversation, because you see, now it will be more direct. It will be something that you really feel that is occupying you. And the child will also feel that he or she would like to talk to you, because now there is a point, there's a common point in which you also have some knowledge and you exchange that knowledge. Also important is to realize the fact that as parents, when we are trying to correct our children, we must not be repetitive, which means that, I mean, every second day, or maybe every every now and then, we keep repeating our criticism of the child. That is also something that should not happen. And because you see, if you would like to correct someone, it always takes time. It's not going to go away immediately. It's going to take time. And because that time is going to arrive at its own sweet will, so you have to be patient. Give the child the time to evolve, to develop, and if he or she is doing those mistakes, don't be repetitive for the sake of being repetitive. Give that time, give that opportunity so that he or she can be reflective, and then maybe you can do that to her. So now we come to the end of this short workshop. So remember, this workshop was meant to create this sensitivity that as far as religion is concerned, the best way to carry forward and to learn religion is to always ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this? So as parents, we should teach our children the why of everything. And if, for example, our parents are not very keen on this, then as individuals ourselves, the best thing to learn religion is to know why should we do certain things and why should we abstain from certain things. So when we know the reason, it will become easier for us to follow that. It will become more, we will be more involved, more engaged, and at the same time, we will be also able to communicate this to other people, to other religions, and also remember this fact that difference of opinion is something that we must always tolerate. We must not judge people by their appearance. We must not judge people by their faith, because this is God's domain. I mean, we don't have sufficient data. We don't know what the person or who the person is from inside. We just look at some of the outer manifestations of his personality or her personality. So this is God's domain. Never judge people. And if ever you have to judge anyone, let it be yourself. Because in that area, you know who you are. You have sufficient data. You know who you are from inside. You can judge yourself. But we must stop judging other people, because this is a habit that we have, and it is not a good habit at all. It keeps your focus on other people. It makes you lose focus on your own self. So concentrate on your own self. Always think that what I am doing, where am I falling short? Let's forget about where other people are falling short. Let's focus more where I am falling short and where I would like to do more. So thank you for this first session, in which I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope we were able to create this friendship amongst us, that as far as we are concerned, we will try and have this important thing in our minds, that as human beings, all of us are respectful. We must not in any way think that we are superior and other people are inferior. And at the same time, we are individuals who look at our talents and opportunities, discover them, and make the best out of them. So thank you very much for this first session.